One of my favorite things in the world to do is watch Friends. I know it's been off for years and years. It's not even around, but I still find myself binge watching old episodes. And I was thinking about this today and thinking, it's the predictability of the friends in the circle, right? You have Chandler with his quirkiness, Monica with her type A of just everything has to be so neat and tidy and organized. It's Phoebe's ability to make you laugh at her silly songs. Ross always comes in with those smart comments, and Joey and him and his food, like it is just so hilarious. And of course, Rachel, she just brings everybody together, and it's just such this beautiful, cohesive team of people. And it's why I wanted to come on and share with you today that I have an opportunity for you to find your friends in the content creation space. So if you are thinking about creating your first or your next digital course, I don't want you to miss this opportunity because Amy Porterfield just opened the doors for registration for her Course Confident Bootcamp. And I'm actually offering a special bonus for anyone that registers for the Course Confident Bootcamp through my special link. So I want you to go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register. That's crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And what you're going to find when you get there is I have this special bonus private podcast series. It's called Money Mindset for Creators. So I want you to go register for Amy's bootcamp, download the podcast, and immediately start listening to it, because what this training is set up to do is to help you get your mind right about monetizing your content, making money so that you can fuel your content creation dreams. So go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp to register for Course Confident. And I cannot wait for you to find your friends and find the people that will be there for you. Do you see what I did there? Yeah, nice little friends segue connection. Go to crystalprofit.com/Amy-bootcamp. And I cannot wait to see you inside. Okay, let's get into today's episode. We are supported by Riverside. One of the things that drives me bonkers, it really does, is when I go to record an interview and everything looks great, right? Like in the moment, everything sounds great. You did your sound checks, all the video, everything looks fantastic. But then you go to download and it's just off, right? The video's grainy, the audio didn't turn out as well as you expected, and you just feel like you need to scrap the entire thing after you spent so much time finding the perfect guest or thinking about the perfect topic. Well, with Riverside, I never have to think about this. So Riverside is a platform that you can use to record your solo content or host guests for your podcast. And it is the best solution for anyone that's just getting started, or even if you're seasoned pro looking to make a switch this year. Head over to crystalprofit.com/Riverside and use the promo code Crystal15. That's crystalprofit.com/Riverside, promo code KRYSTAL15 to get an exclusive discount for the Profit Podcast listeners. Again, that's crystalprofit.com/Riverside and use promo code Crystal15. Okay, let's get into today's episode. What do the Today Show, Good Morning America, Dr. Oz, Business Insider, Forbes, Oprah, The Wall Street Journal, Cosmopolitan, and Marie Claire all have in common? Well, they have featured today's guest. We are talking all about media and PR, which is public relations, if you've never heard that term before, and we're getting into it today, and I am so excited. So today's guest is Susie Moore. So she is a world-renowned life coach, author, and the host of the top-rated Apple podcast, Let It Be Easy. And I want you to really let that phrase sink in, because we are going to say it so much in today's episode. And that's exactly what it's going to feel like. Like you're going to feel the just the deep exhale of letting things be easy. Now, Susie's a sought-after expert for media outlets and has been featured in all the publications that we just talked about today. And in addition to that, she's the resident life coach for Greatest, the world's leading health and wellness site for millennials, and the author of the book, Let It Be Easy and Stop Checking Your Likes. This was a jam-packed episode. We had so much fun. And I feel like it's kind of cliche to say it, and I told her this. I was like, you are just such a ray of sunshine. So hopefully this episode hits you right whenever you need that boost of motivational pep talk, and you can do this because that is what Susie is bringing in today's episode. So let's get right to it. Welcome to the Profit Podcast, where we teach you how to start, launch, and market your content with confidence. I'm your host, Crystal Profit, and I'm so excited that you're here. Thanks for hanging out with me today, because if you've been trying to figure out the world of content creation, this is the show that will help be your time-saving shortcut. So let's get right to it, shall we? Susie, thank you so much for being on the show today, and welcome to the Profit Podcast.
Crystal, I love you. I love the name of your podcast. I can't wait for this conversation. Let's take it away. Ooh.
Yes, we're going to have so much fun. First of all, I love your energy. Anywhere you go, I feel like you just have this I know the cliche ray of sunshine. I mean, it's so true. And I am just really excited to chat about media and podcasting and content because you do this so well, and you have been just doing this so big and bold. Like, let's just call that out real fast. Not just, oh, I'm behind the scenes doing that. Like, you've been on Oprah, Business Insider, The Today Show, Marie Claire, Good Morning. Like, I could go on and on about all these things, but I want to go back to Susie from way back in the day that maybe was just starting. Like, what was that like for you?
Oh my gosh, I love going back to the beginning days in my mind and just kind of remembering, because I think that we always have fears, we always have doubts. Even as we grow, our doubts and fears, I think, just get more and more challenging as we grow. But when I got started, I was working in the tech sector, in the software industry, very sexy, programmatic video advertising. And I was really happy for my job. I was always, grateful and appreciative of the opportunities I was given. But I always just knew, Crystal, that it wasn't my life's work to work, in the software field. And I've always been obsessed with helping people solve their problems. I'm good at coming up with options and solutions. I love to encourage people. And when I learned about the life coaching industry, I just dove in as a side hustler immediately. I had my tech career going, but I was working as a life coach in the evenings and weekends. And immediately I knew. I was like, okay, this is it. This is what I want to do. But, in the beginning, you have your trickle of clients and it doesn't match your salary. It can feel like a bit of a distant dream working for yourself full time. But I knew that if I had the dream in my heart, there had to be a way that it could become a reality. Otherwise, I wouldn't possess the dream. This is something that I really believe is true for everybody. And I also noticed, Crystal, that the more I was just out there, even at barbecues or in a noodle line, wherever it was that I found myself in New York, whenever I just spoke about my life and my stories, and I just shared my advice or opinions or take on the world, the right people would want to connect with me, and the right people would think, oh, maybe you could help me with a problem. Maybe we could talk a bit more deeply about this. And so one day I was in my cubicle waiting for 5 o'clock, which was pretty much most days for a lot of people who work in a corporate environment. And I'd run down the clock reading online, right? Reading publications like a lot of people do. Publications like Mind Body Green, Huffington Post, Business Insider, Marie Claire. And as a new life coach, I was, of course, enjoying the content, but I saw it through the lens of someone as a new content creator, right? Thinking, oh, I've got to start a newsletter. I've got to start sharing my own stories in a more formal way. And one day I was meeting a friend for drinks, and she was late. I was early. I'm always early. And I was sitting at the bar with my martini, and I submitted 500 words to Mind Body Green without thinking. Just underthink it is one of my mantras. And 2 weeks later, to my surprise, to my complete delight, I had an author page and a published media feature in Mind Body Green. And it was shared, that very first piece, nearly 4,000 times. And Crystal, that was it. I was like, there is a way. Hallelujah. This is it. And that was 10 years ago. And I have kept going with this method ever since. Initially, it was just for one-on-one coaching clients. Now it's to sell books, to work with my products, to promote my podcast. The media is our best friend that we often don't even realize exists because we don't think it's there for us. We think that maybe it's reserved for an elite few, or people who are famous, or people who are verified, or people who fill in the blank. Whereas the media just wants to hear from real people like you and me, real stories showing up as ourselves.
Being a woman in business comes with its own unique set of challenges, but also so many opportunities. We get ahead by leaning in to what makes us different from business as usual. I'm Samantha Hartley, host of Profitable Joyful Consulting, inviting you to a special 6-episode series exploring the experience of being a woman in business. You want to hear from women consultants who've hit $1 million, who sell 6-figure engagements, or who've broken their own revenue ceilings? Yeah, those are my clients, and they'll be sharing too. Join me for 6 must-listen episodes that tackle key challenges for women consultants. Follow Profitable Joyful Consulting on your favorite podcast app.
Oh my gosh. And what a picture that you've painted, because I mean, the cubicle is real. Like there's probably someone sitting in a cubicle listening to this right now, and they're
Shout
nodding
out to
along,
you,
and
side
they're
hustlers. Yes.
they're saying,
yes.
yep, this is me right now. Like Susie has called me out. I am here. But I love what you said about, you're sitting there and you almost didn't even think about it. Like, I'm sure it wasn't even a conscious thing. It was just like, I'm just going to do this and we'll see what happens. And this is what I love about you, Susie, because you have this mantra. I don't know if it's your life's mission, but it is the title of your book. It is the title of your podcast. Can you share what that is for everybody?
I always feel like even my shoulders drop when I say it. Let it be easy. Right. I really believe that what we wants us, what our desires, the desires that we have in our hearts, they're meant to be. Success leaves clues. It's not a great mystery what you're meant to be doing with your life. We know. And the support is there. I just think that we think it's so much harder than it is. And we think there's so much isn't available to us, or it's, for later down the line. Whereas I don't know what is there to wait for? This is something that I always question. I'm like, what are we waiting for? I've always kind of instinctively known that the conditions are never perfect, right? We're never going to feel confident and perfectly ready. We're never going to be given a golden opportunity out of nowhere. It's up to us. And the time is now. And it's fun to take action, right? To create momentum and to go for it in your life. And I don't know what we're waiting for if we think there's a better time in the future.
Oh, this is so good. And I mean, what a great, you've coined it now. It's like every time I say, let it be easy, now I just always think of you too. So great branding, great marketing strategy there, whether it was intentional or not. Fantastic.
Would you believe it was actually, I was sitting in Ruth, our mutual friend's pool, and we were talking, and I was like, I'm working on my next book and I can't come up with a title. And she's like, let it be easy is your title. It's what you say all the time. And I couldn't even let it be easy by letting the title come to me. See how the world works? It's hilarious. But yes, let it be easy. I think it's a nice thing to remind ourselves.
100%. And I think that, I want to get into so many different pieces of your story, but the title of your podcast being Let It Be Easy, I feel like you can just settle in immediately and just get right into it. This doesn't have to be something that you're fighting against. It just is something of either your daily or your weekly routine for your podcast listeners. But I'm going to brag on you again for a second, because I know you're not you may be a humble bragger, but you're not going to walk around and say, you have over 700 episodes and more than 900 5-star ratings on your podcast. And people listening are like, whoa, hang on. Again, I want to go back to take us back to the night before you launched your podcast. Did you have any okay, I've done this. I've posted these on the huge publications, but now I'm doing this myself. Like, did any of that come into your mind?
Oh my gosh, I love this question. Well, I've had my podcast for, it'll be 2 years this spring. And I just thought it's probably time. Of course, I love to write, to create content with different mediums, but having been a guest on lots of different shows and having really enjoyed that, and then being a podcast listener myself, often if I'd listen to an interview with someone, two people that I love, I'd go, oh, I've got a question, or this is an area where I'd go. And I just think I wanted to be part of the fun. I didn't put much pressure on it. I thought the worst thing that can happen is I'll try it for a year, maybe not like it, maybe think, this isn't maybe the medium for me. But I decided to do daily episodes. I committed to 90 days initially, and I announced it in my groups, and we were all kind of doing a 90-day challenge. And I was like, I'm going to podcast every single day for 90 days. And my episodes are 5 minutes a day, apart from interviews. And I just found it, it's an area where I don't feel blocked, and I don't think that I have to be perfect. I don't think I have to be original. I'm sure I've repeated myself over time many times, but I think, if I'm showing up each day with people in their earbuds, that's a big privilege for me, and I'm enjoying it. And you know what, Crystal, I'm not taking it too seriously. I think that that's part of it. I say what I feel, what's true for me. It's okay to agree or disagree, but I'm just going to keep going as long as I'm having fun.
Yeah. And I think that, first of all, mic drop, like that is 100% like the anthem that we preach around here is making it fun and letting it be something that comes natural to you. And I think that so much of the time people are in the world of comparison. They're stuck in this like, well, I have to make one like this famous podcaster or the show that I've been listening to. And we can stand in our own way so much of the time because we're saying, well, I don't have a huge team or I can't invest in a ton of equipment. And I just love that you just approach it as I'm just going to be myself and I'm going to commit to smaller chunks of time. I think that a 90-day commitment to get started was fantastic. So in that first 90 days, did you have any oh, this is harder than I thought, or this isn't going exactly the way that I thought it would? Or was there anything that was like, oh my gosh, maybe I made a huge mistake. What am I doing?
It was actually the opposite. I thought, wow, I'm going to need like a content schedule and I'm going to have to do a lot of planning. And it wasn't that way at all. The way that I just prepare for my episodes is whenever I have an idea, I just write it on the notes app on my phone. Often it's just 3 words. That's enough. Like for a 5-minute episode, I know what I'm going to say. I know what was triggered in me, the thing that I want to share. And if you think about it, if you sit down for 10 episodes a week, say 10 5-minute episodes for less than an hour a week, you are ahead of time in your scheduling because that all compounds, right? 3 extra days, 3 extra days, 3 extra days. And you have a podcast that I think the daily thing isn't that common. I mean, not that I understand anyway. And so every day I just keep, I think, appearing in people's feeds. I don't even know exactly. You're the expert, Crystal, how it all works. But I just feel like the people who like you, they're engaged with you. You're showing up for them consistently. And I've got less than an hour a week to do that. I mean, think about it. An hour a week. Most people spend that on social media before they even get out of bed in a lot of cases. So I just think if you can set aside time, I say, confidence is the best productivity hack, right? Just give it a go, right? I also say, to my community, let it be an 85, right? Some podcast episodes, I'm like, oh, that was really good. But a lot of the time it's, hey, this is good enough. I'm showing up. The right person will get the right message at the right time. I believe in that from me if it's coming from my heart. And not everything has to be this perfect production. So sometimes it's camera on, sometimes it's camera off. Sometimes I feel like really jazzed about the content. Sometimes it's an 85 and that's also okay. I heard, and probably you would know this, Crystal, that less than 2% of podcasts have more than even 10 episodes or something like that. Like you're in the top 2% if you've got very few episodes. So it's not that hard to win. Really.
No, it's not. It's not. And I love that you took the approach of the daily podcast. I had a show for almost 3 years where I was doing daily and it was so much fun. And to your point, I mean, sometimes I was talking about what I was like, keeping it all focused on business, but then talking about like the office remodel that I wanted to eventually have and the reasons behind it. So it was like this creative sandbox where I could just share so much of the creativity and the ideas. And I just love the fact that you are just continuing to show up, because you find ideas everywhere. If you know, you're like, okay, next time I sit down, I have to record some stuff. What am I going to talk about? You're looking around your house. You're like, how can I make this relatable to what my clients are going through or what my students have experienced or what that person that's just getting started? So is there like a specific place in your life that is just the go-to for creative inspiration?
Oh my gosh, you're right. The more you create, the more just in tune you are. You realize that there are stories everywhere. And I did started noticing that when I started creating media content 10 years ago, because, I have a column. I mean, there's so much content that I create that I think that you're tuned into a certain frequency almost. You're observing life consciously. You're not autopiloting everything. But I don't think there's a specific, I think everything is inspiring. A broken tooth. I was just listening to the Lion King soundtrack yesterday, and I love a lyric in there about how there's not enough time to do all the things that can be done and to see all the things that can be seen. And I just put that down, Lion King song. So I'm like, are you being intentional with your life? There isn't time to do everything. I think eavesdropping, I love a good old eavesdrop. I'm like hearing two women talk about how guilty they feel overeating. Oh, I can't wait to talk about that. If I'm having a fight with my mom, I want to talk about that. I think inspiration is everywhere. I think Seth Godin said, creativity is seeing what everyone sees and noticing what other people don't notice. And that's all it is. I think it's just being a little bit more conscious, being a bit more observant, and realizing that, life is fascinating, right? People are fascinating. What happens every single day? It's fascinating. We don't even need fiction books, right? Like life itself, reading biographies, paying attention. It's so rich with information, and it's fascinating. And coming up with content has not been a struggle yet. I don't know, maybe in a couple more years, but not so far yet, Crystal.
Yeah. Well, now we have AI to talk about like for a lifetime that can help us with every single thing. So I think you're going to be good.
I know. You could even probably import your most important or your most downloaded episodes and then ask for ideas. I'm sure that could be a cool or fun prompt.
Yeah, it would be so fun. Oh, well, I actually want to get to PR, right? I want to talk about PR and media because we've touched on it a little bit, but for someone that they're hearing PR, public relations, media hits, and they're thinking, yeah, that's not for me. Like, what exactly does public relations and media hits, like, can you break that down into something that's very simple for even a very, very beginner, untech savvy person to understand?
I think that when most people think about publicity, they think about, being on the Today Show, or they think about dropping six figures on a publicist and that being really scary, and you having to qualify for all of these certain, with all this criteria to make sure you're even worthy. And I think about it completely differently. I am obsessed with the media. It's been my biggest source of business growth. It's been my biggest source of fun, of new connections, of opening up. Because media coverage brings you a lot, right? The way that I think about it is giving your message, your story, your name, your brand, what it is that you have to share, giving it a microphone. That's it. If to me, it's that simple. It's, have you got a fertility story to share? Have you got a story about becoming plant-based? Have you got a story of getting out of debt? Have you got a story about learning a language? Whatever it is, divorce. It's endless, right? Any content that you have in your business, do you want to give it a microphone? Like, that's it. An analogy that I use sometimes is, sometimes I think on our own platforms, whatever it may be, say it's social media, for example, it can feel a bit like, when you post a story or you share something, it's a bit like setting up a lemonade stand outside your front door, right? It's a great, you'll get a couple of sales. There's a trickle of people, passers by. But why not go to like a busy sports field on a Saturday where there is thirst and an appetite, and just pop in your stand right there. And look, I love all of the platforms that that I own and that I have control over. But there's so many media outlets in there. You couldn't even put a dent in the media outlets that exist for you, no matter your niche. they have huge audiences that are loyal and engaged, and the media needs content to survive, right? There is no media without fresh stories every day. So I want to show up where the people are, with an appetite, with a thirst, and I don't have to build it. Like, it already exists. And that way it can then trickle through to my products and services, to my own platforms. But I don't have to spend hundreds of millions and have a team of 1,000 people to create an audience of a certain magnitude. It exists. I tap into it. And when I do that, not only do I get the volume and the credibility and the authority, but a lot of opportunities open up. You know, if you want to have a speaking opportunity or a traditional book deal, or if you care about influencer marketing, media coverage is only going to help you. Look, I don't make the rules, but when you're in, especially top tier media, it elevates how the world sees you. It doesn't make you the best at your job, but it makes people think you're the best at your job. And so why not give yourself that advantage? Because we all have it. Some of us are just using it, but most of us certainly aren't.
Oh man. And you know, while you're saying that about all the big media hits versus even things that are niche specific, maybe not everybody and their neighbor knows about specific things, but if you're in the, you know, the fitness industry and you're, you know, a male influencer and Men's Health is on your website, like, credibility booster 101. I mean, you're
exactly.
And I know that you preach this about, it's like, it's the difference of you having a business and being a service provider or a coach and someone looking like they want to, like for me, for example, somebody wants to start a podcast and they come to your website and they see, oh, okay, you know, like you do this, like you offer all the same services, but then they go to my website and they see, oh, I've partnered with Susie Moore, because I mean, let's just throw that up there. Partner with Susie Moore now, but it's like Buzzsprout, StreamYard, like all of these industry specific, like people automatically are like, oh, they still don't know anything else about me. They don't know the history and how I can actually help them. But those little credibility boosters can be the rocket ship that, and I learned this from you. And I have to say, thank you so much, because it has lit a fire under me to make PR, media hits, and partnerships with these media companies a bigger priority in 2024. So if someone's well, first of all, do you have anything else to say about that? Because I know that that's like, it's just, I
could talk for 4 days about this without sleeping, without eating. Like, truly, I mean, this topic, I just know it can be such a needle mover, and those who've had success with it know that, right? And that's why we stick with it. People who get media coverage, we know that it doesn't just mean you get paid attention, which is, look, great for the ego. Yeah, you'll get, you know, all these cool high fives too from everyone that you know, and they'll start to think, oh, you're really, really cool and really legit. But it pays off in so many ways, surprising ways. I just think, when it comes to landing, you know, media that's right for you, a couple of extra things here. You know, when you're Googled, right, and it's proven, even because we spend a lot of money on Facebook ads, right, in our business. And even our Facebook account manager said, look, often even when people see an ad, they're interested, they'll go offline for a second, they'll Google you. And if you're coming up, look, what comes up when you're Googled? Most people will have their site and their social handles. Yeah. Cool, right? But that's everybody, you know. So if you're coming up in these top tier publications that have so much credibility, in the eyes of that person, you are those publications. Like, that is you. And then when you think about wherever you go, right? Like you said, almost all else being equal, if someone's looking to hire a coach or a dentist or a hairdresser or whatever, a nanny agency, and then you see where they've been featured. Like, even if you go to a good old brick and mortar store or an office, you'll see there's media if they have it. They have their awards and they have their media, because it makes a difference. So that's part of letting it be easy, right? Let it be easy to hire you. Let it be easy to say yes to you. Build that trust up front. And then also it shortens the sales cycle, because sometimes trust takes a while to build, and it should. But I find instant trust is often just lended to you when you appear in media outlets that people love and that they've trusted for years. Maybe their parents have trusted them. One of our students was in the New York Times, and she was like, oh my gosh, my parents have read this for years. Like, I grew up with this. And she's like, and I'm in it. And I'm like, yeah, pretty cool, right? What's next? That's always my question. What's next? Because once you taste it and you see what it does for you, you also just want to keep going.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Like it is, it's this hunger for empowerment. That's what, how I think about it is, and I loved how you said this earlier. It's like you're giving a microphone and I'm, you were saying to your brand, to everything that you're doing, but for everybody that's listening, they have a message and they have this message that they're so passionate about. And I just imagine putting a microphone to everyone that is so passionate and they're like, they're working hard, Susie. They're working so hard on their content and they're saying, why am I not getting more listeners? Why am I not getting more downloads? And, we'll talk about, well, what are you doing? I'm posting on social media. I'm doing this and I'm doing that. And I say, we got to broaden this audience. Like, how can we make it more impactful? So what type of success have you seen? Like, well, let's talk about your podcast, actually. You were talking about you use the media for your podcast. How does that work? What is that? If there's any tactical advice that you have for that?
Oh, yes. So one thing that the media loves is roundups, for example. So if you Google top career podcasts, anyone Google top career podcasts, there'll be a site that pops up as number one. It's a career website called themuse.com, which has got a really nice, loyal, significant following. And it's either 13 or 16 podcasts. I think it's 16. Who do you think wrote that, Crystal?
Oh, I don't know. Who
Me.
wrote that, Susie?
Who could have possibly put together that roundup? And Crystal, can you imagine whose podcast I included in my roundup?
I don't know. Maybe it was something along the lines of Let It Be Easy.
Precisely, with an episode to start with, linking to me, like talking about the pod. So for example, that's one way you can always include your podcast in a roundup. If you're doing a sincere roundup, a value-based podcast, right? So just say you're in the nutrition world, there's plenty of media for that. If you're in the finance world, oh my gosh, endless media outlets for you. If you're in the parenting space, the psychology space, there are podcasts for everything now. It's so wonderful. So if you did a roundup and include yours, I always recommend putting yours last because people often stop on the last point, and then just say why your podcast. Editors and producers really support this. They understand what it is that you're doing. And so roundups is one thing. I also do that for books. Secondly, you can essentially take some of your highest performing content and translate it into written content for media.
Yes.
You can also share with an editor, this is my most popular episode, because they want their finger on the pulse of what audiences are connecting to. And if there's feedback, they want to see that and understand it. But also, I've appeared in Psych Central and in Business Insider and in Cosmo, linking to my podcast, just sharing general Let It Be Easy advice. One about making friends as an adult, one about how to make big decisions, one around questions to ask to release stress. So I show up, give value first, right? Take care of the audience, make them the priority. And then it's like, hey, if you like this, you might want to check out the Let It Be Easy podcast with Susie Moore. Right. And you can just imagine the streams that increase, like the boost that you get when your piece is released. Initially, yes, you get that first round of nice traffic, but also your content's out there in the ether forever, right? Media content isn't taken down for any reason. So when anything's being Googled, when people are searching, when they're looking for solutions to their problems and you're coming up and there's great content and then a way to go a little deeper to get even more value, then there's your podcast. There's a link. It's completely frictionless.
Oh, this is so, so good. And I know people that are just like, yes, I want this. I want this. I want to be able to do this. And so the next piece that I know people are asking is like, okay, well, Susie's mentioning a link. Is that a link to your website? Is that a link to a specific place? Like, where are you sending traffic when you're getting these media hits? Where are people going?
Apple. So I'll link to my Let It Be Easy podcast on Apple because that's simply where the most listeners are. And I don't know, Crystal, I'm open to changing that if you have a suggestion. Again, I'm just learning as I go like anybody else. But my two of my most recent pieces, one was for Katie Couric Media. Another was for Wondermind, which is Selena Gomez's mental health organization. I just linked, to the Let It Be Easy Apple podcast. I call it a shirt tail. It's media speak for your 2-sentence bio, like the little tail of a shirt. And you just simply say, Crystal Profit is an X who helps Y. Check out her Z here.
Yeah.
So it's that simple. And if you've created content that people like, they're going to click, they're going to save, and you could even say, a great episode to kick off with is, especially if it's really related to the content of the piece that's just been published. So let it be easy, right? For your listeners to not just locate you, but kick off, right? For me, I mean, I don't know how anybody else grows their stuff, Crystal. What are you guys all doing?
You're like, get on the bandwagon. This is the tried and true way to make it happen. I mean,
I'm too impatient for a lemonade stand. I'm like, let's go where the people are. Yeah.
Yes. You're like, I got my Vitamix. Like, we got a whole, I got the whole thing going.
Gallons.
We got the Costco size. We're good.
Yes,
we're
exactly.
Making it happen. Oh, this is so good. Well, and I think that, especially speaking to everything that we just talked about, I feel like the seasoned podcasters are like, yes, yes, yes. But what if there's someone that's listening and they're like, well, I haven't quite started. Would you recommend, because maybe they're listening and they're like, okay, 2024 is going to be the year of my podcast, but I haven't actually put it out there. Would you recommend media to help them launch their podcast? Or is it something that they should wait for? Because I've actually gotten this question because they're like, well, I want to get more traffic right at the beginning, but what if it's not that great? Like, what if, I'm still getting my legs and trying to really find a foundation that works best for me? Like, what would you say to someone that's in that spot?
Never wait. The advice is never, ever, 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 ever wait. I mean, for a few reasons. If you don't have a website to link to yet, that's cool. You can just have some other form of opt-in, which is so easy to create, right? We know this. And then you have additional email subscribers to market your podcast too, right? So just say you release a media feed, just say you get 300 new email subscribers. That's 300 new potential listeners when you have exciting news, big reveal. My podcast is live. So you want to just be growing your audience constantly anyway. And then I get this question with books too. It's like, my book isn't ready. And it's like, well, you wouldn't have the relationships in place. So, I mean, at this stage, I'll just text my editors and go, hey, I'm launching a podcast. Can you help? Okay. And they'll be like, yeah, let's make this easy for you. So when you have even people who who you can reach out to versus starting from the very beginning, it's going to be simpler, right? It's just going to give you a quicker turnaround. So the best time is always now. No matter what. And look, when I got started with that Mind Body Green piece and I was in my cubicle, I didn't have a website. I had nothing. I had a Twitter account and a Gmail address. I didn't link to anything. I wasn't savvy yet, but I got savvy quickly when I saw the engagement, and then I created my own opt-ins and got all of that in order. And then I had the ball rolling. I had a Mind Body Green logo. I had a HuffPost logo. I even took that content and hosted it on my site too. So you're going to be ahead of the pack the sooner you do it.
Oh, this is such great advice. And to anybody that is thinking about implementing any of those, you could just put out your podcast trailer and put that out there. And that could be the thing. It could be 30 seconds of this is coming soon and until it's ready. But then that way you have that link that is strategic already and it's going to the place that you want people to go to. Because that's part of my brain is always the strategy piece. It's like, okay, how can we make the most out of this? As soon as it goes live. But I do love the fact that it continues to live on forever and ever. So do you have a piece that is top of mind for you? I know I'm kind of putting you on the spot. Is there something that you're like, I am so shocked that I still get leads from this, or people will say, I read this thing, or I saw this video, or heard you on this podcast? Is there one thing that stands out for you?
There are a couple, which it's surprising because you never know what's really going to take off, right? Sometimes you're like, oh, this is my best creative work. Yes. And then you're like, you have a hangover and you throw something together and you're like, whoa, people really like that. And my other stuff was crickets, So I think you never really know. A couple of pieces that have been real winners for me. And by the way, another insider piece of knowledge here, the media often reuses content. It'll even ask you for a refresh or a piece that was maybe published in 2020. They'll re-release. They'll put a fresh date on it, maybe ask you for a couple of quick updates. And then you don't have to do anything again. You have your whole fresh, that big traffic spike or the engagement. So a couple of pieces. So Good Morning America are doing this right now with a piece that I have called Friends to Break Up with Post-Pandemic. That was a year ago. And they said, we're going to rerun it again. Is there anything that you'd change? So I'm like, fantastic. So a couple of the other pieces that have been really popular are when I read Robin Sharma's book, The 5 a.m. Club, and I just spoke about that experience that was syndicated a lot. I know it sold a lot of books, and it people just love the getting up early thing. It's almost something that you never really understand until it's released. People, I think, are just so curious about it.
Yeah.
And then another piece, which I wrote a long time ago, I still get subscribers' questions, life coaching requests from, is called The 7 Questions That Changed My Life. I wrote it for Greatest, where I have a column, and it was syndicated to Elite Daily, I think to Refinery 29, to WebMD, to Yahoo. And I just shared my own experiences of just being bold, asking for things, and just what happened as a result. And that I was like, oh, people really like this. They love being given specific questions that they can ask. And you never know. I mean, other pieces too, when you share them, it's pretty exciting when a television network gets in touch saying, can we discuss them? Pieces around money. People love money content, and not from a finance expert, from like a single mom, right, with 3 kids who got out of debt, or from someone who's a college grad and who's like just trying to figure it out. I mean, money content Crystal, is endless. I don't know.
You're like, I'm just going to keep going.
I mean, I could take your time forever and ever, but it's really endless. And like I said, it's surprising what takes off. You never really know. That's why I think you just have to keep showing up and have fun with the whole engagement process of it all.
Yeah. And you've mentioned this a few times, and I know that there's going to be someone that's asking, okay, Susie mentioned syndicated. What in the world does this thing mean? Because maybe they've heard of it on television shows or other places, but can you talk about what syndicated means?
Yes, it's a fancy media word for sharing, essentially. It just means sharing. So if you create a piece of content for Business Insider, for example, they might syndicate it, meaning they might give it to Entrepreneur as well, and Money Magazine, and Lifehacker, and Yahoo Finance, and whatever else might make sense. Without getting too much into the details, the reason syndication exists is if content is trending, if it's doing well, a lot of these media outlets have financial deals behind the scenes where they share the advertising revenue that comes with the content being shared. So if you create something and it gets 1 million views and you syndicate it to me and I get 300,000 views, then we'd get 150,000 each of the CPMs of the ad spend. So it just works for everybody. You know, it's like, hey, I'll kick it to you, right? Because you have a different audience, or we have a shared audience. They're very likely to enjoy this content too. We'll split the money. And the person who really wins is you, right? As a content creator, it's what I call having one post and turning it into 20 without doing anything. And you never know when it's going to happen either. You can't predict it. No one tells you. You need to have Google alerts in your name.
Yeah. I mean, definition of let it be easy. Just like write it once and let it be reshared without you even knowing. And you just wake up to tons of like, oh, apparently I'm everywhere today.
And it's so exciting when you're translated. You can be translated.
That's
it's
so awesome.
I know, right? Like, why wouldn't you want a piece of this? I think, I want one good reason. If you've got a message to share, like if you've got something of value to give, I just don't know why we wouldn't elevate that a bit, why we wouldn't speak a little louder and serve more. Because isn't that why we go into business, Crystal, right? To make an impact?
Yes, 100%. And it is with many people as you can. And I love that we live in the digital age that allows us to do that, because I feel so blessed to be able to, Susie and I, we were talking earlier before we started recording. I was like, I get to talk to people for a living. I love what I do. I get to share messages. Like, it's so incredible. So I know there's people listening that have such a special message that, this is the way to amplify it. If you are looking to amplify your reach for your message this year, I mean, this is absolutely the way to do it. But I want to switch gears for a second, because I have 3 rapid fire questions. I promise they will not be painful. They will be fun. We're going to let this be easy. Okay, Susie, are you up for it?
Yes, I love rapid fire.
Okay. The first one is, what piece of advice would you give to a brand new podcaster or content creator?
I know it sounds cliche, but it's real. Be yourself. People love people who are themselves, and not everyone has to like you.
Yes. Oh, great. Yeah. Both of those are great. Okay. The next one is, Who is, or what is the dream podcast you would love to be on? And who is your dream podcast guest you would love to interview? So it's a two-parter.
Oh, I'd love to interview Selena Gomez. I think that she's fascinating and very honest about her journey, which hasn't been easy. And then the podcast I'd love to be on. I want to think, well, because I believe we're always manifesting when we say things. So, I've been on so many already, which I think has been which I've been so happy with, but maybe Ariana Huffington.
There we go. I think those are great. That's great. You know what? And I want to call it out that when people have shot their shot on this show, like I listened back to Amy Porterfield was on the show and she said she wanted to interview Ashley Flowers and Crime Junkie, and it happened. So I'm just saying,
Yes.
I don't know if it's magic in the air, but we put it out into the universe.
Selena, come on. I'm already working my way. I think I'm getting there, see, this is nothing the media does, right? It kind of gives you access.
This connections.
The timing isn't always up to us, but you put yourself in the way of opportunity for sure.
100%. Oh, that's so great. All right. And then my last question is, do you consider yourself a perfectionist?
No, God, no. And for me, perfectionism just means anxiety. Like or for me, it doesn't even mean high standards. It means anxiety. So absolutely not. And I think good enough is good enough.
Oh, let's just let it be easy, ladies and gentlemen. It's the theme of the show today. And I mean, this has just been so much fun, so incredible, Susie. Thank you for coming on the show. But
what a joy.
If there's somebody listening and they're like, well, I want to know more about Susie. I want to know more about getting 2024 like on the roadmap for media hits or just understanding the behind the scenes of how all of this works. I know that you have something really special to share. So can you talk about that?
Yes, Crystal and I are live hosting a fabulous class called Overnight Rockstar, which is all about becoming your own publicist, even if you are starting from scratch and the media world is just like Chinese to you or Greek to you, even if you have no clue where to begin. The place to register is getrockstarpr.com/Crystal. And it's going to be so good. Ask questions. We'll hang out. A lot will be demystified. And if nothing else, you'll be raring to go, full of clarity with your message and feeling pretty confident too.
Yes. I mean, and I have to just like full disclosure, I have learned from Susie. I have been following her forever. And you epitomize, let it be easy. I know I've said it like 20 times on here, but it is just so tactical, the things that you show people and how you can lay it out and you demystify so many things that can feel hard or difficult to understand. So please join us. We're going to have so much. If you enjoyed this today and you want more of it, this is the way to go. So we will have links in the show notes for you to register. And we're going to have so much fun. Susie, do you have any last words to share with the audience?
I would love to hang with people live. getrockstarpr.com/Crystal. Interactive, fun, and amazing follow-up to this. The magic's always in the action, right? In like where to from here. So if you want that microphone, again, it's only a plus, right? There are so many positives that can come your way. Then come hang with us. Check it out live and register no matter what, because there will be a limited time replay.
Yes. And we're going to, like we said so many times, we're going to have fun. Like that is, we're going to let it be easy
Guaranteed.
And we're going to have fun, guaranteed. So
Yes.
maybe even a dance party or something. We'll throw some confetti. We're just throwing things out. I don't even know. We're going to make it happen and have so much fun. But Susie, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you, Crystal. I can't wait to hang with you again very soon.
Yes.
Mwah.
Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
I know I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. That was one of my most fun interviews that I have done, right? Like Susie just brought so much to the table. And you know how she kept saying like, oh my gosh, we could talk about this forever. I wanted to keep talking to her forever. I wanted to ask more questions that I know this audience has. And I want to make sure that we cover all of our bases. So if you want to hear more from Susie, then you have to join us in our workshop. So she said the URL earlier, and it's going to be linked in the show notes, but make sure you go to getrockstarpr.com getrockstarpr.com/crystal. That's getrockstarpr.com/crystal to register for this training. It's going to be a free workshop. It's going to be on Wednesday, January 31st. And it's going to have a limited time replay. So make sure that you register. Even if you cannot join us live, I want to make sure that you are there because we are going to have so much fun. Susie and I are doing this together. How fun is that? It's not just me saying, oh, go register for Susie's thing. No, I'm going to be there with you and we are going to have so much fun. So again, that's getrockstarpr.com/crystal to register for the Overnight Rockstar webinar, training, workshop, whatever you want to call it. We are going to have so much fun. But that's all I have for you today. Please go listen to Susie's podcast. She is just, I've learned so much from her, so many things that she gets it so right. It should be, let it be easy. I have absolutely adopted this mindset. And like I said earlier, anytime I hear that phrase now, I think of her. So perfect branding. Again, kudos to you, Susie. It was very genius to go with that. But I want you to learn how you can be more visible in 2024 and beyond with your podcast, how you can get your lead magnet in front of more people and just grow your audience full of people that are interested in what you're selling. So come join us once again. Go to getrockstarpr.com/crystal to register and we will see you there. But that's all I have for you today. So if this is your first time tuning in, make sure you hit that follow or subscribe button wherever you are listening. And as always, remember, keep it up. We all have to start somewhere. Hey, Profit Podcast listeners. Thanks for sticking around to a little bit after the episode to hear this special message because I want to hear from you. We are starting a new segment called Fan Mail Shoutouts, and I want to hear from you and I want to hear your questions. What do you want to know? What questions have you been dying to ask me? So here's how to make this happen. Go to the app where you're listening to this podcast right now. Go there. I'll wait a second. Okay. Now, once you're there, you're going to see a hyperlink at the top of the episode description that says, send Crystal a text message. And that's all I want you to do. Send me a text. It could be casual, informal. It could be totally anonymous. Or if you want, you can include your name and the name of your podcast or content wherever you are creating, and I will give you a special shout out in an upcoming episode. So again, go to the show notes for where you're listening to this episode right now, and it will say, send Crystal a text message. And I cannot wait to hear from you and give you a shout out in an upcoming segment of Fan Mail Shoutouts.